Hello and welcome to Business India with me, Tarun. The government did bite a big bullet and actually demonetized and replaced 500,000 rupee currency notes. But what is the way ahead to ensure better compliance, increasing the tax base, which remains a pain point for the income tax department because not enough people pay taxes in this country? I have got Vipin Malik, former director of RBI, who explained this and discussed this with us. I have also got KK Mittal, market expert, joining me on the discussion. I'll go across to Vipin Malik to ask him first the demonetization decision. 8.5 lakh crore rupees coming into the system, into the mainstream. People have deposited. 6 lakh crores is still yet to come. And what is the way ahead to achieve the aims that this government wants to achieve? Tell us the hard facts, the hard decisions that the government would need to take to ensure better compliance and increasing the tax base. Mr. Vipin Malik, your opening comments on this crucial issue. I think the phone line was not connected to Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, I want to ask you, the government did bite a big bullet when it demonetized and replaced 500,000 rupee currency notes. Now we've got 8.5 lakh crores deposit with the banks. But to achieve the kind of aims that this government wants to achieve, what are the hard decisions that the government would need to take in the coming 1 year, according to you, to achieve its aim of A, better compliance, B, increasing the tax base? This is, I think, a pain point for the income tax department too. What do you think needs to be done? Can you share all this with us frankly?
Mr. Is it addressed to me?
Yes, Mr. Malik.
Yeah. You see, as I was saying you earlier also, my only for people to public at large, businessmen, entrepreneurs to come to you and pay rightful taxes is to simplify these taxes and reduce the tax burden. Reduce the tax burden means that, let me give you example, a very simple example. We have in Income Tax Act section 270A. Under that section there are two type of penalties. One is penalty for underreporting, which is 50%. One is penalty for misreporting, which is 200%. Now this second Finance Bill Act has come, amendment has come. Now in this, what has they done? Penalty 10%. They can't make up the mind that, and in this also there is two things. One is cash and bank deposits, and the other is that you have a cash credit, investments, unexplained credits, unexplained investments, unexplained assets. Then it will be a different situation. I mean, why to create all such things? Why don't you simplify? Make life simpler for the people so that they comply and pay taxes. That is the only answer I have. And this, the moment they do it, you will see that people will come forward and pay their rightful taxes. Nobody's cheat. They are made to cheat because the compliance factor, high taxation factor, and then going to the department. Now going to the department has 90% reduced because technology has taken care of. But first two things are important if you want people to pay their rightful taxes.
Okay. I'm going across to Mr. KK Mittal, market expert. Mr. Mittal, I would want to understand from you what kind of changes according to you need to be brought in to ensure better compliance and increasing the tax base, and would you agree with the kind of points that Mr. Malik made, that compliance itself is so difficult and this leads to a lot of problems? Would you agree with that statement?
See, as far as compliance is concerned, yes, there are a lot of gaps and there are a lot of harassment, tax terrorism. We are calling this harassment by several names. And this is based on different point of time, different harassments to different set of people. That is true. So simplification of tax laws is very important for better compliance. I can give one interesting example, that there are a lot of discretionary powers which are given to the assessing officer, and there are a lot of open-ended tax laws which are there to define by the assessing officer as per their conveniences, whether against or for different kind of assessees. So I think all these need to loopholes need to be plugged into, so that the discretionary powers of the assessing officer is totally removed. So there we see a lot of tax terrorism. Another issue, like lot of property prices are below the circle rate. This is going to create a lot of tax issues, and this has been discussed and highlighted by several tax practitioners, even in courts. So I think we need to bring all these things in line, which may lead to the tax terrorism and which compel people not to pay tax. As far as the tax compliances are concerned, I think the country and the attempt is to lead through the plastic money, digital payments, e-wallet system, whereby a lot of loopholes and pilferages would be plugged into. So I think the whole attempt as on date is for digital, for e-wallet, for e-payment, net banking, and for that a lot of infrastructure has already been created, but lot need to be done, lot of education need to be done in rural areas and remote places.
Okay.
I think the Prime Minister attempt is also towards digital India and follow up of
Okay, and Mr. Mittal, I want to ask you, Mr. Mittal, when talking specifically of demonetization, tell me what are the benefits of demonetization, say a year down the line? How will the Indian economy benefit? How will the tax department get or mop more revenues so that that can be pumped into the development of the country? How do you see this happening in the next 4 quarters?
See, the foremost when this issue was brought in, the expectations were that about 2.5 to 3 lakh crores of currency, which is a black money or unaccounted money or undisclosed income, would be extinguished from the system. So to that extent, the liability of the Reserve Bank of India will come down and the balance sheet will improve. Now with this, there would be inflation which is going to come down. The fiscal deficit is going to be removed, and which will even come down lower than 3%. And on the whole, the black money, whatever is parked, or undisclosed income, whatever is parked, would be banked and it would be part of the economy. There would be initial hiccups and initial disruption as far as consumption is concerned, but after a quarter, when the money, sufficient money is in circulation, the consumption disruption would be over and it would be development. Lot of fund which will be mopped up by the government would be used for creating rural infrastructure for betterment of rural life, health, education, irrigation, rural infrastructure would be implemented. So a lot of and this, I think now the Pradhan Mantri has already declared.
That's an important point. Money going into rural infrastructure. Let us see how that happens. I'm going across to Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, could you share with us in detail the benefits of the demonetization decision in the next 4 quarters or 6 quarters? It is a far-reaching decision. How will it affect the economy and the revenues of the income tax department, and overall the money available for funding development projects, because the government says that better compliance, we'll get more money, we can do more development projects in rural areas. So in overall everybody benefits. What is your analysis of this decision and its impact?
You see, there is going to be a windfall for the banks, windfall deposits to the banks. Estimation is that around 77.5% of the GDP will come back to the banks, which will create room for the investment spending. Whether investment spending is for the smart cities or selected cities or for the rural, there will be investment spending. I am not going into that how much money ultimately will be deposited, but estimate is 7.5%. If that 7.5% of the GDP comes as deposits, and it is spent on investment spending, I can assure you that we will achieve not only 7% or 6.9%, but we can reach up to 8%. But that depends again how the government now starts working. I mean, I can tell you it can be other way around also. If they do not act, the things can go bad to the worst. So government has to now show, after putting people into so many problems, they should show that we are for you, and here we are recirculating the currency through investment spending.
Okay, that's a good point. But I want to ask you, sir, specifically, will people go back to cash who have been hit this times, or cash is gone for good? A lot of people will stop trading in cash. Do you see that behavioral attitudinal change happening, or do you think that more measures will have to be taken for that to happen?
You simplify the tax returns, you simplify the GST, you will see that nobody wants to have even a single rupee cash in hand. But if you do not simplify it, then again it is 2,000 rupees which will be and 500 rupees which will be a cash economy.
Oh,
I can assure you
that's a very important. KK Mittal, I want to ask you, do you agree that if tax structure is not simplified, then 2,000 rupees will become the de facto black economy 1 or 2 years down the line? Or do you think attitudinal change is here to stay? Mr. Malik thinks otherwise. He says if tax structures are not simplified, then people will go back to cash. What do you think about it?
No, I think apart from tax structure, the whole attitude need to be changed. Not only the taxpayer, but the taxation authorities and the assessing officer, and including the government as far as the taxation laws are concerned and their simplification is concerned. It should be understandable by the people. But second thing is that with the digital and promotion of digital, I think a lot of cash economy would be reduced, and whatever money we have seen in circulation, more than 14 lakhs crores, would come down to maybe 30-40% with the global standard. So that is one important thing. And once there is adaptation of digital payment system, I think a lot of issues would be removed from the system. There would be everything, every transaction would be recorded through the banking mechanism, through the banking system. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. You are bound to keep the account through the banking mechanism of your transaction. So there would be a recording of transaction automatically. So I feel that a lot of black money and accumulation of black money from the system would be slowly reduced.
Okay. I'm going across to Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, this 85% penalty that is being talked of, that if you don't pay up and you're found by the taxman, you'll have to pay 85%. Do you think that will have a great impact with people coming up to pay and accepting this amendment that pay 50% VDIS and ensure that you go away, no questions asked? Or do you think this 85% penalty is no deterrent to somebody who wants to escape the system and the taxman?
No, definitely. You see, It's not 85% penalty, it is 85% total.
Okay.
Income tax under section 115BE is 60%, penalty is 10%, and surcharge is 25% of 60%. It total comes to 85%.
Okay.
You see, if people have no choice, they will try to save whatever the money they can save. But 85%, after 85%, what is left to them is 15%. If for 15% they have to file the tax returns, which is more complicated and which create more problems than solution, then the SSC will think that I am saving 15% only and I am going to pay for 4-5% as a cost of filing my tax returns. What is left to me is 10%. So that is the point to think on, and that is up to SSC. I am not aware of what people are thinking, but I will wait for some time. Let the forms come. Only then I can answer this.
Okay, but I would want to know from you, since I've got the opportunity that now you're on the program, sir, why was the response to the 2015 VDIS not as per the expected lines? Why didn't people come up and pay?
Because of the complications I have been telling you earlier. Because it is so complicated laws. It is, you see, for me also, I am for 40 years practicing. To read every year so many amendments and to remember those amendments, it is impractical. To file an income tax form for a company or a firm or for a political party or for a cooperative society, really it is a nightmare. So what I am saying is that if they simplify it, compliance will be there, taxes will be paid. If they don't, then 85%, even do you 95%. There was a time when 103% people used to pay taxation, and that was the worst time. That cash economy started from those years. I am talking about 70s. Today again 85%. If you keep on complicating it, people will not come forward. But if you simplify it, people will definitely come forward, even to pay 85%, and they will say 15%.
Okay, okay. As Mr. Mittal, what do you have to say on what Mr. Malik just appointed on people compliance being only and only linked to say the complicated structures? Do you think this needs to be on the government's agenda, or you can say the topmost agenda now, simplifying the income tax regime in this country?
Yes, it should be the topmost priority of the government. If they want more compliance and people should be coming forward, not only the tax need to be simplified, but taxation need to be reduced for people to comply. And one most important point which I would like to make from this scheme is that government has yet to clarify that after declaration no question would be asked. I think from the whole process this whole issue is missing, which may be deterrent, but I think the government should be coming up with the notification that once it is declared no question would be asked. Okay. And the SSEs and the disclosure would not be put to harassment.
Okay.
So again, this is a very important issue.
Okay. Mr. Malik, there have been news in the past 2 weeks of lockers being opened up, of people receiving notices in various states that you have deposited so much and so much of cash, and you will have to answer the source and everything. Do you think this is rather an enthusiastic or a very this should have been done during the time of the assessment, or the income tax department is right in sending these notices right now when people are depositing cash, or do you think they should wait till the assessment comes up?
I think, as I said earlier, don't scare the people. The more you scare, the more they will enter somewhere. I mean, so you see, be friendly with the people, and then say that we will help you in compliances or in doing your assessments, rather than saying okay, we will enter your lockers. Tomorrow you say you will enter your houses. These are not the things which in a democracy works. So I mean, you can always say that from tomorrow onwards all lockers are sealed, and the department will sit on those lockers. But is this how the things work? No, things don't work like that. Things work only with the friendly regime. Now let me also add with that. In the last year they have added, in the last year income tax return, they have added one column to be filled in, and that column was how much cash credit, unexplained investments, unexplained money, unexplained expenditure, borrowing or repayment or investment you have not disclosed in the books. Tell me, is this the column to be printed in the form? Who will say that I have unexplained investments, I have unexplained expenditure, I have unexplained income? Is this the form to be filled in? Huh? So I don't see any reason for such type of additions in the form.
Okay, it's a very important comment made by Mr. Malik. I mean, it's a practical
and
issue.
I compare this, and I compare this, and I compare this with the what you said, that the bank, that they are issuing the notices that your lockers will be opened. Open it lockers if you want to open it. What threats? I mean, in a threats this country doesn't work. It will work only with the friendly.
Okay.
Friendly atmosphere.
I take your point. Mr. Mittal, do you think a lot of people will rush towards gold investments because the kind of notices, I mean, they were not everywhere. There was one sundry notice in Northeast, in Rajasthan. We heard people were asked to share their, balances and cash details as on March 31st, 2016. As also on November. I mean, all this, do you think it is going to lead to people going to gold, or do you think that's not happening in the current time?
I think as far as investment in gold is concerned, I think that would be slowed down. Whatever happened during the 8th, 9th, 10th of November. But now since people are short of cash, so investment in gold will definitely halt and come down. But second issue, as far as the taxation laws are concerned, I think before this disclosure scheme, there were a lot of discussion that whether the tax authorities can levy penalty under section 270 or 115B. There were a lot of debate and discussions whether this will attract tax, or the income tax authorities or the assessing authorities can levy tax and a penalty even if you show this whatever money is deposited as income.
Okay. Now that sincerely out of time, I'm going across to one final closing comment from Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, you've made your point on easing the taxation system. Mr. Mittal also agreed that there is a need. If is one final message that you want to give the government of the day, what will that be?
Sorry, I have not heard your question.
I am asking
What you said?
as Mr. Mittal also said, one final message that if you want to give the government of the day, and you've already made your point on easing the taxation structure and the forms, what message would that be? You know, they have done demonetization. What is one or two things that you would want the government to do?
Improved financial position will reduce the borrowing of the government. That is a big advantage. So they should do three things. One is reduce the interest cost of the industry. Second is the increase the investments, allow banks to have independent decisions on the incremental deposits which they have received, which is 7.5% of the GDP. In making such investments, encourage them to go for MSMEs and small entrepreneurs, or even the large entrepreneurs. You will see the country shining.
Okay, that's very important point. Thank you so much, Mr. Mittal, and so much, Mr. Vipin Malik, for joining us for this discussion and sharing your views. We'll come back, we'll track this issue of demonetization, and also the other issues that the government needs to work on. What is the people's response to the scheme on the Business India? Thank you so much for joining us on this discussion today. Thank you.